So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this webinar on how to use GMAT Geometry. My name is Rajat Sadana. I'm one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I'm going to be your co-host today. I'm actually super excited about this session. There are two reasons why I'm super excited about this session. First of all, this is one of our first sessions after the launch of Quant 2.0. And for those of you who don't know what Quant 2.0 is, it's our second generation Quant product. We launched this about 10 days back. And we're super excited about it. It has delivered some amazing results. The second reason I'm really excited about this is that my co-host Payal Tandon and your main host today, she'll be hosting a session after almost a year and a half. She's working on Quant 2.0 and she's a master GMAT instructor, and she'd practically taken an exile from taking these webinars or conducting these webinars, and then she's back, and I'm sure you guys would love this. For those of you who are e-GMAT students, this is a brand new session. This is something that we've never done before, and so that's another reason why I'm super excited about this webinar. Now, in this webinar, we're going to talk about process skills, GMAT skills. We're going to talk about concepts and just go from the very basics to the most solving the most advanced questions in GMAT geometry and on specific topics in geometry. We're going to focus on data sufficiency questions as well, and that's 700 level data sufficiency questions. And then just to make sure that you're well prepared for this webinar, we did send a few video lessons your way. They were the concept files on quadrilaterals and the process skill files. If you've not gone through these, I'd recommend that you go through them. They are a part of your free trial, and as you go through them, the impact of this webinar, the effectiveness of this webinar, the score improvement that you would gain from this webinar would effectively multiply. With that, we also have some upcoming free webinars. Next week, 6 days from now, we have a GMAT strategy webinar for those of you who are aiming for high GMAT scores. And I think that's a good point to really figure out the kind of score you're aiming for. Let's see if I have a poll question for that. I don't, but I'm sure most of you are aiming for a high GMAT score. In this webinar, we talk about how do you devise that personalized study plan? What metrics, depending on your strengths and weaknesses, should you track? How should you proceed with that learning? And as you're learning, how should you evaluate every week, every 5 days, every 10 days, whether you're moving in that right direction, whether your scores improving with every hour of effort that you put in. So that's this webinar, I think one of the most heavily attended webinars that we have. And then a week from now, next Saturday, we have a webinar on number properties. In this, we focus on the famous remainder equation, and we take you from the very foundation in divisibility and remainders to being able to solve the most advanced questions. If I were to say from a learning standpoint, this webinar probably takes you from that 0 to 100 in that span of 2 hours or so. And then we also have a very interesting webinar this Wednesday, where one of our former students who scored a 740 on the GMAT, she's going to talk about how she has the GMAT and then how she leveraged that GMAT score to get into Columbia and INSEAD, two top schools. Columbia, of course, an M7 school, INSEAD, #1 school in Europe. So again, if you want to know how to position your candidacy, how to answer some of the most challenging questions, and both Columbia and INSEAD have fairly reasonably long applications, then this is a webinar that you should attend. You should make sure that if you have questions about how do you get a letter of recommendation, when do you get started, what was that timeline, again, this is that webinar for you. Okay. With that, let's kind of look at the profile of this group. If you've not selected responded to this question, please do so. Based on the data that I have over here, I have a fairly, that's a reasonably spread out group. We have folks who haven't decided their GMAT date yet. Presumably you guys are still starting with your preparation. We have people who actually have their GMAT within the next 15 days. And then we have a reasonable number of people in every segment over here. The nice thing about this webinar is that even if you're just starting with your preparation, or even if you have the GMAT in the next 15 days, you're going to find equally, each one of these groups is going to find that what you learn from this webinar, you can apply immediately. You can start to see that impact right within the next 24 hours or so. With that, I'm done with the introduction. I'm now going to invite my co-host Payal Tandon to start with the geometry portion of this webinar. Payal.
Thank you very much, Rajat, for that wonderful introduction. I'm super duper excited to be here with all of you conducting this geometry session after obviously launching Quant 2.0. I mean, this is, so as Rajat said, this is our first session since our launch, and we are all very, very excited about it. So I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me clearly. Let me just get that poll once again. All right, so please select if you can hear me clearly. Please select yes. All right, super good. Okay, so this is going to be a super interactive session. I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions, so make sure that you are very much into the session and respond to my questions, because the more you respond, the more you'll be able to gain from this session. Okay, so these are the two questions. If I ask you a yes no question, just select yes. I'm going to broadcast the results whenever necessary, and then if I ask you a subjective question, just post your response over here in this question. Okay, all right, so with me, I have Atreya, who would be supporting throughout the session. Atreya is our lead subject matter expert. He's also the strategy expert. So if you have any questions regarding the content that you see in the presentation that I'm not able to take because I need to maintain a certain flow of the session, feel free to post those questions in the Q&A pod that you see towards the bottom part of the screen. If you have any strategy related questions regarding your GMAT preparation, where you're at, you need a study plan, please post those questions as well. Atreya would definitely help you out. Okay. All right then, so let's get some information about what you guys think about your capability in geometry. What scares you about geometry? What's exciting about geometry? So let's get some questions, some answers here in the short answer poll. All right, let's wait for its quad. Probably my best sector. Let me broadcast the results, but I want to be 100% secure. Absolutely. You're at the right place, because you're going to get all that feedback today in the context of quadrilaterals, which is what we're going to be covering in this session. Time consuming, need to brush up formulas, afraid of circle theorem, too many formulae. Yes, we hear that quite a lot. Too many formulas, too many concepts, understanding the question correctly. PS questions are easy, but DS is confusing in case of geometry. Very valid point, and we're going to talk quite a bit of, you're going to experience that very aspect in this session, how to combat this problem of PS questions being easy. Again, that's apparently easy, but DS confusing. So very good inputs here. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to ask this question once again towards the end of my session, and then we'll see how our responses change from the beginning to the end. It's always fun to see how the approach towards a certain or perception of a certain topic changes as you learn the appropriate way of handling that topic. All right. So let's move to our agenda. Here's what we're going to be doing. First, I'm going to be measuring your current ability to solve quadrilateral based questions, and you're going to be seeing 4 700 level questions. All these questions are data sufficiency questions. You'll get about 2 minutes to solve each question. Okay. Now, the first 2 questions are actually versions of the same question. So technically, there are 3 sets of questions here. Okay. Then we're going to give you feedback on your current conceptual ability. For this, we're going to again be asking you certain questions with regards to the concepts pertaining to quadrilaterals in specific. And then we're going to be doing a quick recap of those concepts so that people who are not as yet at that required conceptual ability, they can still benefit from the session by doing a quick recap, by knowing what concepts we will be utilizing here. And then we are going to come to the main part of this session, in which it's going to be my goal to improve your process skills and show you how you can improve your ability by following a structured process. Okay. And then once you experience that, we're going to then tell you how you can take that approach and incorporate that in your study plans so that you can realize that improvement on your own. And that's where Rajat is going to talk about how the Quant 2.0 is going to make that possible for you. And then we're going to come back and we are going to talk about continue improving your process skills. Okay. And then by towards the end of the session, I'll again ask you this very question: what's your perception of geometry? And then we'll see how your response varies. All right, so let's get going with the GMAT style questions. You are going to be answering data sufficiency questions. So let me just ask you real quick, how are all of you? So tell me if you're comfortable with data sufficiency questions. Press yes if you know what data sufficiency questions are. Okay, so let me reword my question. Okay, being comfortable doesn't mean is not what I'm asking. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to reword my question. My question is, how many of you are aware of or familiar with data sufficiency questions? That is, you know what the answer choices are. What is it that's required for you to answer a data sufficiency question? Let's go now. Okay, so majority of folks are 87%. That sounds good. All right, so the handful of folks who are not comfortable with data sufficiency questions, you may not be able to answer the question within the time limit. That's okay. Again, that's the feedback for you, that you need to be aware of what data sufficiency questions pertain to. Okay, so all right, so let's get going. Do you all have a pen and paper handy? Yes, no? Make sure that you have that, because you'll be solving questions one after another here. Now, again, don't worry about what the correct answer is. We'll be discussing these questions to death throughout this session. Okay. All right. So let's get going. Now, here is let me get the poll first so that you get used to how to answer these questions. So what you see over here are 5 choices on your screen, and you have still solving. So I want all of you, there are about 120 people in the session. So I want all of you, I would expect all of you to select still solving, because this gives me an idea as to how many people are actively engaged in the question, so that I can time you appropriately. If let's say even after spending 2 minutes, majority of you have still not honed in to the correct answer that you perceive to be correct, then I will need to, give you guys more time. So let's get some more folks to select still solving. Okay, so we'll get started with this now. Now here is your first question. Go ahead and solve this question. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Please put in your answers. All right. Let's get to your next question, and here is, now this question is variation of the question that you just solved. The only change in the question text is that you see, so first I want everyone to select still solving. Okay, so just the statement 1 has changed, and that to the highlighted part. So just to let you know as to what the change is. Okay, so just statement 1. Go ahead. All right, I'm going to end the poll in another 5 seconds. Select your answers. All right, well and good. Now here comes your third question. Please select still solving. Well, technically question number 2. This is a fresh question. Okay. Here's question number 2. All right, last few seconds. Please select the answer. All right, I'm going to end the poll. Now here comes your last question, and okay, good luck. All right, start putting in your final answers. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. All right, so we are done with the 700 level questions, and I know this would have been a little bit of a grueling experience. What do you guys think? How was this? Are you guys tired already of geometry? Or are you guys excited to see what's in store for you in this session? Because now we're going to come to the slightly easier part. We're going to come down to the very basics of quadrilaterals, and we're going to quickly look through the various concepts that you need to be absolutely certain about as you solve these questions. So tell me, how was this experience? How many minutes did we get? You guys got about 2 minutes to solve every question. Nervous about the results? Again, forget about the results for now. Again, as I said, you will get another chance at these questions as we go through this webinar. So that's the reason why I don't want to give you the results right now. Okay, extremely hard. Yes, I can see that. I'm going to fail. Save me. We are here to save you. Don't worry about that. And needed more time? Yes, I could see that too, that you guys needed more time. And I knew that quite a few of you were selecting the answer towards the end when I asked you to select the answer. So I know that you needed more time. And that is something which we are going to fix through this session as to how should you approach the question so that you are not in this situation as you were right now. So good. It was a good initial gauge of where you guys are at as a group. Now let's come to the concept related questions. Now what do I mean by that? I want to give you feedback on your conceptual understanding of topics related to of concepts related to quadrilaterals. So for this, I want to give you another set of questions, and these questions are going to help you gauge where you are at in terms of your conceptual understanding. So now these are going to be much easier questions. So don't worry, I'm not going to be putting you through this experience once again, right? So what you see on the screen are a group of statements. So you see 7 statements listed on the screen. I want you to go through each statement one by one, and let me get the poll as well so that you know how you have to answer this question. And there is no time limit over here. Obviously, you will need to answer this question within, I would say, 2 minutes. You're not going to take as long. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know, right? So you see these 8 choices corresponding to the sentences that you see, corresponding to the statements that you see on the screen. Read each statement and then see whether that statement is true according to you. Okay, read statement 2, select statement 2 over here in the poll if you think that statement is true. Okay, if you think none of these statements is true, then select choice 8. Obviously, if you're selecting choice 8, this means you're not selecting any of the other choices, right? But you can select more than more than one choices from choices 1 to 7. So I hope that's clear. Are the instructions absolutely clear? Yes, no? Let me get my yes, no poll as well so that you don't have to type that out. Okay, if you have any confusions about the directions, feel free to enter that in, type out that confusion. Okay. So now write down yes if you are done making your selection so that I can give you another question which is along these lines. Okay, select no if you're still in the process. That way I know how many people are actively engaged. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go through this real quick now. We have quite a bit of content to cover here. So just make some selection. Okay, if you're not clear, that's okay. You will get to that conceptual clarity. I will tell you how to get there. Okay, so 14 of you who have selected no, let's get you all to select yes. Just make your selection and move on. Good. Thank you very much. I must say this, you guys are very, very responsive. I truly appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to end this poll here and I'm going to show you the next poll. Okay, so now here comes your next set of statements. So again, click on no over here because you're still solving. That way I know. Okay, now next set of statements, again, exactly the same drill. Okay, make your selections quick. All right, I'm going to end both these polls. Now, here's what I want you to do. Again, little bit of instructions. This is done in slightly different way. You haven't seen questions such as these before. So I'm going to give you the correct answers here. And I'm going to get you the poll because now I want you to rate your performance so that I can give you precise feedback on how is it that you need to improve your current conceptual ability. So I'm going to broadcast the results here. The correct answer for the set 1 of question statements was that no statement is correct. Okay, that's the correct answer. So now what I want you to do is you have your poll, you have the choices that you had selected for question number 1 for this particular set. I want you to count the number of statements that you selected. That is, I want you to count the number of statements that you perceived to be true. And make a note of that count because we are going to be utilizing that count to come up with the feedback so that I can give you the appropriate feedback on your conceptual understanding. So are you guys done counting it? Yes, no? Okay, good. Now I'm going to give you the same thing for the next set of statements here. Here, all the statements were correct. Okay, so, and let me show you. Here, all the statements were correct, which means choice 8 was not the correct answer for sure, right? So now I want you to do the exact same thing based on the response that you selected, count the number of statements that you selected, and then we are going to figure out which group you fall in. Okay, so let me know when you're done with that. Let's clear out the answers. Click on yes if you're done. So all these statements are correct. Okay, now I won't be discussing these statements in detail because these are direct inferences from your conceptual understanding. But for those of you who are a little bit unclear about what concepts these are inferred from, we will be doing a quick concept recap. Okay. All right, good. Sounds good. Now, here is the feedback time. Now, what I want you to do is take the count, and I'm going to, you already have your count, and I'm going to show you this poll over here. So, you have to make a decision based on the count that you have, whether you fall in group A, group B, or group C. So I want all of you to click on analyzing. Thank you for the folks who started doing that already. That's good. Now, I'm going to give you the criteria for group A. If the count of statements for question 1 was 0, and it's an and condition, if the count of statements for question 2 is 7, then you fall in group A. So those of you who fall in group A, click on group A right now. And then we'll move to the group B category. I know it's a little bit complicated, but again, we are honing you, we are getting you guys warmed up to listening to reading the instructions and appropriately selecting the right thing, because that's very important. Okay. Okay. All right. So group A is done. Let's move to group B now. Group B is folks who selected question number 1. For question number 1, selected either 0 statements, 1 statement, or 2 statements. And again, an and condition for statement number 2, for question number 2, selected more than 3 statements. So select group B. You guys are in group B. Good, very nice. You guys are good. I'm happy. Now let's go to group C. All the other folks belong to group C. All the other combinations that you guys have had, you are in group C. Okay. Very nice. Now I'm going to end the poll. There are 2 more folks left. Please make appropriate selection. Okay, sounds good. I'm going to broadcast the results. So 20% of the class is in group A. Then we see 53% of the class is in group B and 28% of the class is in group C. Now here comes your feedback. For those of you who are in group A, you guys have good conceptual understanding. That's the feedback that you're getting from based on your performance in this session on concepts pertaining to quadrilaterals. For you guys, you don't need to review any concept files regarding quadrilaterals. You know the concepts well enough. You need to move to enhancing your process skills ability, and that's what we're going to be working on in this session. Okay. Now, for those of you who are in group B, there are some gaps. It's not like you don't know the concepts. You know the concepts, but there are some gaps that exist. Now, what I want you to do is, after this session, take a look at the statements that you marked incorrectly and figure out which properties of quadrilaterals you need to strengthen, and then revise those properties from the concept file that is available in your course, concept file titled Quadrilaterals. Now, for those of you who are not e-GMAT students, you have the access to this file in the free trial as well. So I want to make sure that with this session, as you do the post-session analysis, you guys get to, all of you guys in group B and group C get to group A. That is what you guys need to do. Okay. Now, group C, you need to build conceptual clarity, and that feedback is very important for you, because you have to invest, because you need to invest time in building your conceptual ability so that you can then build your process skills and then get to the path to Q50. Okay. Now, what do you guys think about this feedback here? Need to know that, does this feedback make sense? Is it surprising, or is it something which you didn't know? It's yeah, so let me know what you think about this feedback, and then we'll do a quick recap of the concepts, and then we'll get to looking at the questions of higher difficulty level. It's useful feedback, makes sense, good feedback. What else? Okay. How to improve process skills. Yes, we're going to be talking about that. It's an eye-opener. It's cool. Good. Very nice. All right. And, it's very important for you to know. Actually, let me ask you this question. How many of you, till this session, till you got this feedback, thought that you are really good in your conceptual ability? You don't need to revise anything, but right now you got to know that, no, there are some gaps that you need to bridge. How many of you felt that way? Yes, no? It's good to know where I stand. Good. Okay, so quite a few of you, 14 of you, 15 of you, very nice. Okay, how many of you felt, okay, let me ask you another question. How many of you felt, and answer in the yes, no poll here, that you need to review concepts, but in this session, you got the feedback that no, you're good with the concepts. Well, there are quite a few people there as well. So this is the power of getting feedback that is specific to you, so that now you invest the time in the things that are pertinent to you. Okay, that's very, very important. All right, good, very nice. Now let's do a quick recap of the concepts. Now, all of us know what a quadrilateral is, right? A four-sided closed figure. Now, there are these different types of quadrilaterals, starting from the trapezium, where one pair of opposite sides is parallel. Now, that property propagates down to everything else underneath trapezium: parallelograms, rhombus, rectangle, square. Now, in parallelogram, instead of just one pair of opposite sides being parallel, both the pairs are parallel. And let me use my mouse pointer. I'm over here. Then rhombus, not only are both the pairs parallel, all the sides are actually equal. In rectangles, same thing, they're parallel and equal, the opposite sides. And in squares, all the sides are equal. Now, there are angles properties as well. And again, I'm not going to be going through them in detail. You guys know about these. And then comes the diagonals. I want to spend a little bit of time with the diagonals because you guys have already solved questions, one question pertaining to diagonals. So let me talk about that a little bit here. In a parallelogram, the two diagonals are not equal, they bisect each other. Okay, so that's very important. The diagonals are not equal, but in parallelogram, they bisect each other, which means what can you infer about the diagonals in a quadrilateral? Diagonals in a quadrilateral do not bisect each other. They are just two diagonals. There's no other special property of diagonals in a quadrilateral. Okay, but in a parallelogram, they bisect each other. They're still not equal. In a rhombus, they are not equal. Either they bisect each other and they are perpendicular to each other, right? So, but in a rectangle, both the diagonals are equal, they bisect each other, okay? And in a square, they are equal, they bisect each other, and they're perpendicular to each other, okay? Now, these are very important properties that all of you should be absolutely comfortable with, okay? What are the properties of diagonals? Very, very important, okay? And then you need to be comfortable with these, and you need to be able to draw appropriate inferences when you're solving questions, okay? And we're going to look at the application of this. And then area, perimeter, I think these are basic properties that a number of you should be familiar with, okay? So enough of the concept recap now. I hope that you're all comfortable with these concepts. You'll utilize the difference, the understanding of the difference between the diagonals of various quadrilaterals as you solve the questions. And the main thing is the feedback that you've gotten on the concepts. That's very important. Make sure that you utilize that feedback and get your conceptual understanding pertaining to quadrilaterals to that 200%. Okay. All right. Now is the time to start building your process skills. Here's what we're going to do. For each question that you solved, question 1, question 2, question 3, for each 700 level question, we are going to get you prepared to solve that question now, okay? So I'm going to give you an easier question. So here is the easier version of that for question number 1 that you solve, okay? So I'm going to give you some time to answer this question. Let me get you the poll here, and same drill. You see question number 1, select still solving, and then solve the question. All right, so I'm going to give you, for this question, I'm going to give you as much time as you need, okay? Because I want to make sure that you are spending, well, let me think, maybe 2 minutes should be enough for this question, okay? Because we're going to discuss this question in detail. So let's get going here. Okay, last few seconds. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. Make your final selection. Okay, so here are the results. So choice B is the correct answer. And we see that only 38% of the class was able to solve this question correctly. So I do have a hypothesis as to why you're not able to solve this question, why you are not able to solve the question as accurately as I would have wanted to, or why not that many people have been able to answer this question accurately. So let's go through the solution, and then we're going to come to the final conclusion as to why that is the case. My guess is right now that it's really the translation skill that you're not able to apply, which is not related to the hardcore concepts pertaining to geometry. It's really you're not able to translate the information. So let's see whether my hypothesis is correct or not. Now for this, I want you to answer this question, and again let me get you a poll. And as I said, I'm true to my word. There'll be lots of questions that I'll be asking. So what is the relationship between the length A and length B? Tell me that. Given what's stated in the question statement, if the length of rectangle PQRS is 21% more than its breadth, what can you infer about the relationship between the length A and breadth B? Okay, so you are able to translate this. Okay, so that's good. I think my hypothesis didn't work then. So you are able to translate this, and that's why we collect data. We hypothesize, we collect data, and then we figure out what's correct and what's not correct. So almost everyone, 96% of you have selected the correct answer. A is equal to 1.21b. So this part is correct. Now let's move forward. So essentially what you do is you visualize the two entities, the two figures that are given to you. One is a square. Let me get my pointer. One is a square and the other one is a rectangle. And then you clearly mark what the sides are. Obviously for a square, you assume that side to side is S. For the rectangle, you assume A and B, and then you write down the relationship between A and B, which is what you translated from the highlighted part of the statement. Now, for those of you who did not do this translation correctly, and there are a couple of you, you guys need to go through you need to build your conceptual understanding of how to do percent related translations. That's a translation process skill, and it's covered in word problems. So definitely spend the time in enhancing your skill set there. But let's move forward. Now, what is it that we need? What's given to us is that area of square ABCD is equal to the area of rectangle PQRS. So you calculate the area. Okay. Now again, observe. What do you observe with this tabulated data over here? What can you say about that? Write down in the short answer poll here. What do you see? What do you observe with this tabulated data? Why have I tabulated this data? Now, why have I tabulated the data? The reason I've done that is so that you can organize your data. You get in the absolutely easy to understand, so that you get in the habit of organizing your information so that you don't make any mistakes. Now, in this case, the question is relatively straightforward. The chances of making a mistakes are not as much, but as the questions get more and more difficult, you need to be able to organize your data effectively so that you can draw appropriate inferences, you don't make any mistakes. Okay, this process skill is called as visualized process skills, and yes, these are the same process skills. Process skills don't change, right? You have to build your ability in applying those process skills so that you can get to that Q50. Okay, so that's what I mean by visualize. Visualize means that you take a look at the data and you organize it so that you can visualize the inferences from it, right? Visualization also means that you look at the diagram, which is what technically it is. Traditionally, that's what visualize means, that you look at the diagram and then you infer information, essentially any organized form of data. Now, What's given to us is that area of square ABCD is equal to area of rectangle PQRS, which means that S squared is equal to 1.21 B squared. Now is the time to do the calculations. Now, how many of you were able to come to the point that S is equal to 1.1 B? How many of you were able to get to that point? Write down in select yes if you were able to. S is equal to 1.1 B. Good. All right. So for those of you who were not able to, a handful of you, you guys need to build your ability in calculating squares and roots and how to process with decimals. And those concepts have been covered in detail in special modules in our Quant Basics course. Okay. Now, how many of you were wondering whether S is equal to negative 1.1 B is also a possibility? Okay. How many of you were wondering about that? Well, you were not, and that's good. So intuitively, you're applying the process skill of apply constraints because you know that because sides are always positive, you cannot have a negative answer over here. Okay. So again, even though you're able to do all these things, the reason why I'm spelling these out for you is so that you become cognizant of how you are intuitively applying these process skills right now in an easier question. Okay, that's very important because these are the skills that you need to continue applying. Okay, now after this, what you do is you find the ratio of perimeter of ABCD to the perimeter of PQRS. You put in the information over here, get the appropriate information for S divided by 2A plus B. You then observe. Now, there's one thing that I want you to observe here. Each and every variable here, S, A, both of these variables are in the form R can be expressed in terms of B. How many of you were able to identify that? That the variables S and A can be expressed in terms of B. Good. A number of you were able to identify that, and then you put in the information, you cancel out B, you do the calculation, and what you get is 220 divided by 221. That's the answer. Now, let me bring back the poll for this question because I want to understand why you made the mistake. So now tell me, you've gone through the solution here. Why is it that only 27 of you were able to get to the correct answer? Where did each one of you fail? Tell me, what did you miss when you solved this question? Very important to understand that. Now that you've gone through the entire solution, you know the steps because you guys as a group did well with all the faltering points that existed for this question. Let me reopen the poll. Sorry about that. Yes, so now tell me, where did you falter here? Because the learnings from this question will be applicable to the second question. Did not find the relation between S and B. Okay, interesting. Let's look at this part. Very interesting. Hurriedly considered ABCD as a rectangle. Okay, now the reason why you considered ABCD as a rectangle is the corrective action for that will be you need to slow down as you translate information. You need to work on translate process skill. Very important, okay? Spend the time. Don't rush through the question. Translation is the most important thing for you to, in this question, translation is very, very important because if you don't, then you will end up making these mistakes, okay? Then all the time that you spend beyond that is going to go into waste. Okay, I solved correctly but arranged data very poorly, which caused me to take a lot of time. Thank you very much for writing that down. That tells you the importance of building up the visualize process skill. Okay, so I want you to work on that. Ratio opposite, very interesting again. If you made the opposite ratio, then what you did was again a translation mistake. You did not read the question statement properly, and that's what you see identified on the slide as well. I misread square ABCD as a rectangle ABCD. Yes, that's the same thing. Okay. A lot of people like me have prior experience of these questions due to JEE, which helps a lot, does at least in my case. Well, that's an interesting comment there. Thank you for making that statement. Well, the experience that you have is because you have already built up your process skills. Think about it. I mean, there is nothing rocket science about it. There's nothing complicated about this question. If you solve this question in a step-by-step manner, applying the conceptual understanding and applying these process skills, you will not have a problem. So the reason why you were able able to answer this question correctly is because you've already built your process skills to a certain degree, right? You already have built that ability. And that's what is helping you out. And it's very much possible, it's very straightforward. If you follow the Quant 2 Roto architecture, if you follow the right tools, you will be able to build this ability for GMAT as well. So thank you for making that statement here. All right, so good. So now we are good with this question. Make sure that you apply the learnings from this question into the difficult question that we're going to solve now, which is the first two questions that you saw up front, okay, when we started off with this. So the main learnings, make sure that you are able to do your percent translations really well. Make sure that you are reading the question statement properly, okay, and you are organizing all that information in a tabulated form, in a neat form, okay. Make sure to do that, all right. Don't hurry up, okay. Now let's apply all the learnings here into our data sufficiency question, and I want to make sure that you guys understand how to solve data sufficiency questions as well. So I'm going to recap that real quick here. And again, just observe the question statements. They have similar language, similar concept. So there's nothing overly complicated about this question, except that it's in the framework of a data sufficiency question, okay. Now for data sufficiency questions, I want to make sure that you follow this process in a very methodical manner. Do a very thorough question statement analysis without even thinking anything about the individual statements. Very important, okay. Just do the question statement analysis so that you know exactly what you want from the individual statements. Then once you know that, that becomes your guiding path. Now you look at statement 1 alone and see if that statement gets you the answer. If yes, you eliminate choices B, D, and E. You eliminate in groups. If no, then you eliminate choices A and D. Then forget all about statement 1. This is the property that a number of you forget. This is a step that a number of you forget to do. Do not remember anything about statement 1. Statement 1 does not exist for you at that point in time. You then apply, you then look at statement 2 in isolation and then see if that gets you your answer. Eliminate choices appropriately. If neither of the statements give the answer, then you bring back statement 1 and 2 together, look at that set of information, and then answer the question. Everyone clear with how the DS method works? And again, for e-GMAT students who are not clear with data sufficiency process, there is a full module dedicated to that in Quant Basics. So definitely look at that module, go through that module in detail before you start solving questions pertaining to other concepts. Okay, so here comes the question. I'm going to get the poll here and start solving it. Again, be very clear as to how you are solving the question. Let's get everyone to click on still solving. All right, go ahead. Okay, time to mark your final answers. Let's get everyone to make their final selection. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So how do you guys feel? Do you feel more confident than before? Tell me. Yes, okay. Okay, good. Yet couldn't solve it. Yes, absolutely. But the main thing is, I wasn't expecting that everyone would be able to solve this question, but I was hoping, and I was, the expectation that I had was that at least some people who are at that level will be able to solve this question correctly, and that's what I see over here with the results. So earlier only 28% of the folks were able to select the correct answer. The correct answer over here is choice C. For the previous attempt, which is what you see in the middle of the screen here, 28% of you answered this question correctly. Now that percentage has increased to 42%. So there are definitely people who now are able to solve this question correctly. Okay, so but the thing that I want to see is, because again there's lots that goes on with a GMAT skill question, right? So there are certain things that you learn. It's a progressive way of learning, and as you solve this question you will see that there is nothing overly complicated about this question other than the fact that it's enveloped in the data sufficiency part. Okay, and obviously as you gain more expertise, as you go through the data sufficiency module in Quant Basics course, you gain more expertise with it. As you go through each and every module, you will get that expertise. So now let's talk about the solution here. I am going to hide this. Now, what is the cost to fence a rectangular plot, right? That's what we need to figure out. Now, let me get, now what property of rectangle, and let me get the poll. There are three choices here. So what property of rectangle would you need in order to figure this out? Tell me that. Select that. Yes, you would need to figure out the perimeter you would need to figure out the perimeter in order to figure this out, right? So you've done what you've done is you've drawn an inference that because you need to fence the rectangular plot, which means you need to figure out the boundary, which means you need to figure out the perimeter, and then the cost is perimeter times the cost for each meter, which means in order to answer this question, what is it that you need? You need to figure out 2 into a plus b, which means that you need to either have individual values of a and b, or you need to have the sum of a plus b. Now, how many of you were able to draw that second inference, this one over here, that you need to have, even if you just have the sum of a and b, you will be able to find the answer? How many of you were able to draw that inference? Or rather, tell me how many of you were not able to draw that inference. That's very important. How many of you were not able to draw that inference? So there are quite a few of you, 5 or 4 of you who are responding to that question. You guys were not able to do that. Now that is a learning for you. You need to look at what it is that you need, because then your analysis of the question statement, the inference that you draw from the statements, becomes very important, right? You will end up making mistakes. That's what happened in this question as well, in the other version. Now, statement 1, length of plot is increased by 10 meters. The area of the plot increases by 100 square meters. So let me change the poll and tell me what was the outcome of your analysis of this one. What was your analysis of the statement? Let me remove the polls. So after you process this information, what did you get? What did this information provide you with? Value of b. There are some of you who are saying linear equation with a and b as variables. Is that it? Did you not get something else? So people who are selecting choice, let me broadcast. People who are selecting any choice other than choice 4, you haven't done appropriate level of analysis of statement 1. Okay, and I'm going to show you the analysis. So that's the feedback for you. You haven't analyzed statement one completely. Okay, so let's go through statement one again. Organizing information is very, very important. The length of the plot is increased by 10 meters. Again, document all of that information in your table. Okay, how many of you documented the information in the table? Yes, no? Okay, so some of you did. Very good. Now, let's read further. New area is equal to original area plus 100. Translation. Very important to do that. Now, you simply plug in the values and what you get is B is equal to 10. So, what you're getting from statement 1 is the value of B. Okay, that's what you're getting from statement 1. So if you were not able to get to that point, that means you didn't do a complete analysis of the statement. Okay, so you have value of B, but you don't have any information about A, which means choice statement 1 is not sufficient, which means that choices A and D are now eliminated. Now we move to statement 2. Statement 2, again, translation is required. What is the new width here? Tell me that. Let me change the poll here. All right, so tell me, what is the new width? Yes, absolutely. The new width is 1.1b and the new length is 0.9a, right? The length of the plot is decreased by 10%, right? And then you basically calculate the perimeter. Again, utilize your visualize skill, organize your information. Now, the perimeter decreases by 5%. Translate that appropriately, okay? Which means that what you get from here is relation between A and B. How many of you were able to get to that point? That you got the relation between A and B? It's a ratio of A and B is what you got. Okay, so those of you who were not able to get there, the 7 of you who have put in that information, those of you who were not able to get there, again, make sure that you understand which process step are you faltering at. Were you not able to translate? Well, if you translated, were you not able to simplify this equation? Because according to, based on where you faltered, your corrective action is going to be different. If you were facing difficulties, for example, how many of you were facing difficulties just solving this equation here with decimals and 2 variables? Press yes. If you face difficulties. Now, those of you who are facing difficulties there, this means that you need to work on your simplification skills. Now, simplification as a skill, as a separate, it's so very important for all of quant questions that we have created a separate module that talks about how to simplify equations, how to simplify expressions. So that's covered in Quant Basics. So definitely strongly advise you guys to do that, because as you go through that module, you build up your simplification skills, and then such questions become a cakewalk for you. Okay, so now let's come to the fact that, okay, statement 1 is not sufficient, right? Because it doesn't have it doesn't give you any value of A. Statement 2 is not sufficient because it just gives you an equation, a ratio of A and B, right? But when you combine both statements, that's when you get the value of A as well. You have A and B, which means that both the statements together are sufficient. Okay, all right, so what are your learnings from this question? And we're going to go into the second version of this question before we get started with our next set. So tell me, what are your learnings from this question? I have been giving you a lot of feedback in terms of if you answer certain question incorrectly, as I gathered information from you, this is what you should do. So do let me know if that is resonating with you, or if that is giving you a good direction of how to proceed with your preparation. Do I have to substitute B in A at last? You don't need to. Really good question. You don't need to do that for a data sufficiency question. Why? Because all you need is, can you find what is asked in the question statement, which is why a very thorough question statement analysis is very much required, but you don't need to do all the calculations. You need to do the calculations only till the point you get to the point that you can answer the question that has been asked. Okay? Good. You do not need to solve all the way through to get an yes, absolutely. Very good. Okay, so now let's look at what happens in the second version, in the other version of this question. Now observe what happens in statement 1, and I want you to be very careful about this. Okay, well, I have one more question here. Let me take that. Why not create another variable for perimeter? Well, if you can express an entity in terms of other two variables, then why do you bother? Why should you create another variable for perimeter is what my question would be. You need to minimize the number of variables. And again, this is very important point that you just brought up, and we deal with that point in our word problem section, where we talk about how do you translate, how do you take variables, how do you assume variables, how many variables should you assume. Okay, so that's and again, it's not a silly question, it is not a very basic question. It's a question that does trouble students, because they are really struggling. Okay, what variable should I assume, what should I not assume? And that's why we have incorporated all those techniques, or all that thought process, in module 1 and 2 of word problem section. So definitely all e-GMAT students look at that. Okay, now let's look at the other version of this question, in which statement 1 actually now is sufficient. Okay, and let me so observe what happens in statement 1. Because you did a thorough, because what you get from statement 1 is unique value of a plus b, you can now answer the question that was asked in the question statement. Now, what would have happened, tell me this, what would have happened had you not done a thorough question statement analysis before analyzing statement 1? Tell me that. In this question, this is the version 2, wherein the perimeter of the plot increases by 50%. Tell me what would have happened then. Okay. Option C would have happened. Absolutely right. Option C would have happened. We wouldn't have answered the question correctly. So do you guys see the importance of doing a thorough question statement analysis? Do you recognize that? Now, again, remember, if you, and again, it's very important to put these things in the right context. And again, you build your conceptual understanding, then you build your process skill understanding, and then you apply all that understanding to solve more difficult questions. And again, data sufficiency questions are they are not necessarily difficult. It's just that you need to utilize a step-by-step method to solve those questions. You need to apply those process skills in the context of data sufficiency questions, right? And if you fail to draw appropriate inferences while doing question statement analysis, then you will end up faltering, as is what would have happened with this question here. Okay, so but again, you have to, there's nothing new that you need to do, really. It is that you continue to apply the process skills. Okay, now with this, we are going to move to our second set, right? So we are going to take a look at this question now, and let me get the poll here so that you can answer this question. Now this question obviously pertains to question number 2, the 700 plus level question. Okay, all right, so all right, still solving. Good. Let me take a quick check. How are you guys doing as such? You guys enjoying the session yet? Okay, let me not disturb you while you're answering this question. Okay, go ahead, solve this question. All right, last few seconds, put in your answers. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. Make a final selection. And don't worry, if you're stuck, we're going to get you unstuck. Don't worry about that. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So the correct answer for this question is choice C. So I want to understand where were you guys stuck? Those of you who were not able to answer this question correctly, what was it that you were stuck at? So that when I discuss this question, I can make sure to emphasize on those points, on solving, on the actual solving of it. Okay, what else? That's a good point, and I have that covered already. And again, your simplification skills come into picture here. What else? Where else were you stuck at? Center of rectangle and vertex. Very good. That's a translation problem. We are going to talk about that too. That okay, that's you translate and you're not able to translate text into image. That's the issue. Or you can talk about visualization. Stuck at factorization. Good. That's calculation. Couldn't find it in the options. That means you made a mistake somewhere and you'll have to figure out where did you falter. Solving equation to find y. Good. Very nice. Thank you very much. Went on to solve the quadratic equation rather than just squaring one equation. Got the correct answer after realizing it. My mental energy got used up solving the previous question. Interesting part. Again, you have to make sure that when you start a new question, you need to reset your mind. That's a very good test-taking skill that you need to develop. Very, very important one. Okay. Misorganization, messy workplace due to time constraint. Again, visualize process skill is what you need to work on. Okay. Good. Thank you very much for telling me about all these, and we will be able to cover everything right now in this session, in the solution for this one. Now, here is the question. Let me get the other poll here. 4 choices. Read the statement which is given over here. What is the distance between the center of the rectangle and its vertex? Which one would be correct? It is choice 3. Absolutely. Choice 3 or choice C. You go from the center to the vertex, which means you need to understand what vertex means, right? So for those of you who were not able to translate this visually in this form, you need to work on your translation skills. Okay, that's very important. That's my feedback to you. Okay, now let's move further here. Essentially, what we need to do is, as we translate the English into an image, into the visual form, what we are able to infer is that what we need is distance, that the distance is half of the diagonal. That's what we need to figure out. How many of you were not able to draw this inference after you translate it? How many of you were not able to do that? Press on yes if you were not able to do that. Press on no if you were able to do that. Okay, good. So I hope people who are pressing yes, they now know what is it that they need to work on. Okay, now let's move further. Now we are dealing with diagonal, obviously, right? So which means that we need to retrieve the appropriate properties so that we can continue drawing inferences and continue navigating through the solution. So what are the diagonal properties of rectangles? That's where your 200% conceptual clarity comes into picture. Okay, diagonals of a rectangle bisect each other and they are equal, right? Now you take that. How many of you were able to retrieve that? Let me get that information. How many of you were able to retrieve? Obviously, if you weren't able to figure out that distance is half of the diagonal, then you wouldn't have been able to move further. But if you were able to figure that out now, were you able to retrieve the concept? And you can see those of you who were able to figure out that you're dealing with diagonals were able to retrieve the concept, and that's really good. Now, because the diagonals are equal, you can consider any one of the two diagonals. In this one, we are considering diagonal AC. OA is what you need, which is equal to half of AC, which means we need to calculate AC. Now we retrieved our Pythagoras theorem, and then we figure out that what we need is P and Q. Now we come to the question statement back again. and we figure and we translate that and we get two equations. How many of you were able to get these two equations? I'm pretty sure majority of you were able to. Okay, how many of you were not able to get to this point? Okay, so I can see some people who were not able to get to this point, and that's okay. Okay, but I want you to see how you are going from one point to another in the solution, drawing inferences, navigating your way to the final answer. Now, once you get P and Q from the question statement, once you get these relations, two equations in P and Q, you basically then solve them. You get a quadratic equation. Now, when you solve how many of you were able to solve the quadratic equation? Or who were not able to solve? Tell me, how many of you were not able to solve the quadratic equation? Okay, so for those of you who were not able to solve quadratic equation, you guys need to build your conceptual understanding of quadratic equations from the algebra module, from the algebra course. Quadratic equations are dealt with as a separate module. So definitely go through that, okay? Because that's a very important concept here, okay? Now, q is equal to negative 15 is not possible, which means the only value of q that's possible is 6. Which means that P is equal to 15. So you got to those. Now from here, you have to figure out what is P squared plus Q squared, right? For that, you need to figure out square root of 261, which is where quite a few of you got stuck. How many of you got stuck thinking how to calculate the square root of 261? For you guys, what you need to work on is your calculation skills. Okay, for this, again, in order to figure out the square root, I don't expect you to figure that out mathematically without bringing anything into context. Again, you need to take cues in questions such as these. You need to take cues from the answer choices. Observe the answer choices. Your answer choices have square root of 13 and 29 in them, right? Which means you take hints from that and then you express 261 as a multiple of 13 or 29. You try to express 261 as a multiple of one of these two, okay? So essentially, you're not working in isolation to calculate the square root of 261. GMAT is not it does not expect you to be a calculator, right? GMAT expects you to utilize the information that's given to you and then draw appropriate inferences so that you can make your life easier, so that you can progress further and further in your solution, right? So that's where you have to utilize the information appropriately, right information at the right time. So now you express 261 as a multiple of 13 or 29, you get that hint, and then you solve the question. You get to choice C as the correct answer. All right, so this was the solution, detailed solution of this question. Now tell me, what have you learned from this question? What learnings are you going to take forward to the DS question that corresponds to this one? What learnings will you take forward? Or what learnings have you had from this question? Okay, breaking the problem into parts, need to be very attentive and need to control the excitement, take hints. Okay, from the don't hurry, see through what is being asked. Good, very good. Don't look only at the question. Okay, so the calculation part seemed very interesting to you guys. Okay, and for those of you, and again, the key thing is that what you would have noticed in this question is that for those of you who were able to do this initial part of translation to figure out that what you really need is to calculate the half of the diagonal, all of you were able to go through all of these steps without much problems, okay? And then you finally got stuck at this point over here, which is why a number of your learnings are corresponding to that part, okay? But those of you who got stuck right up front, for those of you, you already have your feedback that you need to build your translation skills. Okay, you need to do that, and you can do that very comfortably. And again, over here, translation skills are in context of geometry. I'm not saying that overall you are not good in translation, not at all. It's purely in the context of geometry, which is why you need to go through the geometry course module by module and start building your translation skills. That's the reason why we have process skill files in each and every module in the context, so that you can learn these process skills in the context of that particular module. Okay, now let's now take this learning and apply it on the next question. Okay, so again, translate, retrieve relevant concepts to infer, apply constraints on variables, use choices to find cues, right? So we're going to take all these learnings and move forward to our question number 2. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you is go back to your revision to the concepts pertaining to diagonals that we discussed up front before we started talking about these questions in detail. Definitely retrieve that concept appropriately. In a way, I'm giving you a hint to solve this question correctly. Okay, so let's move forward. Let me bring back the choices for you. Here it is, question number 2, retake. Click on still solving, please. Okay, here you go. Good luck. Okay, last few seconds, sorry, not minutes. Put in your answers, please. Okay, I see that you guys have already put in your answers. Okay, I'm going to broadcast the results and tell me, how did you feel about this question? Did you feel more confident as you were solving this question? We'll come to the answer, that's for sure. But how did you feel as you were going through this question? Seemed easy? Yes. Okay. All right. So let's go through this one. The correct answer here is choice B. Now, I still don't see a huge improvement in accuracy, but what I do see is there was an improved confidence in selecting choice B. People who selected choice B selected it upfront very fast. Is that what you guys also observed? Those of you who selected choice B selected it more confidently. Because that's the feeling that I got. That's the inference that I can draw based on how you were responding to this question. Okay, so let's go through this and figure out where is it that people who faltered, and you and as I mentioned that to you, it will become really very, very obvious. Now look at this quadrilateral ABCD. What is the correct statement over here? And let me get the poll here. These are 5 choices. So tell me, what can you infer from this question here? Okay, so a number of you are saying choice A, that AC is equal to BD. You're saying choice C as well, AB is equal to CD. You're also saying, I know you guys are changing your responses now, that's okay. AC is greater than BD. Well, the correct answer is none of the above. Okay, and why is that? And that is the reason why you faltered in this question, because this is a quadrilateral. So where you guys faltered, or majority of you faltered, was that you assumed that this figure is a rectangle. You assume that what is given to you, because it looks like a rectangle, so it would be a rectangle, right? So that's the reason why majority of you faltered here. Now, if I tell you that if now you have recognized that you are not going to fall in the deception of the figure, I want you to go back and review your analysis, review your solution, and then select the answer again. I'm going to reopen the poll, and I want you to now, I know choice, I've already said that choice B is the correct answer, but can you now see, I want you to type in the chat bar in this short answer poll, can you now see how by drawing that incorrect inference, by assuming the information from the image, you ended up with the wrong answer? Okay, and that's a very, very important thing which you need to keep in mind as you solve data sufficiency questions, or as you solve problem solving questions as well. But this artifact, this aspect is utilized can be extensively utilized, and is extensively utilized while creating data sufficiency questions. Do not assume information from the figure unless it is explicitly stated. Now, if in the figure it was given that each of these angles are right angles, right? Then you could have assumed, then you could have inferred that it's a rectangle, even if the question statement did not state explicitly that it's a rectangle, because now your question statement is always combination of the question statement in English plus the image whenever the image is provided to you. Okay, so you always have to make sure that you do not draw incorrect inferences. Okay, very, very important. Okay, now if you think about it, there's nothing else that you can do with statement 1. EC is equal to 5 centimeters. There's nothing else that you can do. But when you look at statement 2, and this is where analysis of statement 2 again brings to light why that 200% conceptual clarity is so very important. All interior angles of ABCD are right angles. Now, everyone knows that it's a no-brainer thing. Everyone knows that angles in a rectangle are 90 degrees. All angles in a rectangle are 90 degrees. But can you take the information that is shaded over here, all interior angles of ABCD are right angles, and infer from that what you're dealing with is indeed a rectangle? That's the level of conceptual clarity that you need to have so that you can draw such inferences to solve difficult questions, to solve those 700 level questions. Right? When you are able to draw that inference, you get to that level, you get to that 90th percentile that you need to get to, that 97th percentile that you need to get to in order to get to Q50. Okay, but you don't do that in isolation. You don't do that right off the bat. You slowly build your conceptual, you build your conceptual understanding, you build your process skills, you build, okay, how do you take this information about the perimeter of AEB is greater than perimeter of BEC? How do you process this information? How do you draw connections, right? All of these skills are important for you, okay, and you need to build those in a step-by-step manner. Okay. So what have you learned from this question? I'm pretty sure this will be the biggest learning. Do not make assumptions from figures, because when you do that, you end up making mistakes with regards to drawing incorrect inferences. And once you make one inference mistake, you head down the wrong path to your goal. Okay. Absolutely. Diagrams are not drawn to scale unless otherwise specified. Things have to be explicitly stated either in the question statement or on the figure. Now, if the question statement stated that it's a rectangle, then the figure need not have had those right angle notifications. No. Okay. So now with this, I am going to invite Rajat back into this webinar so that he can guide you as to how you will be able to build this skill set in the right way as you go through Quant 2.0 course. And then once we do that, once he walks you through that, we will then come back and look at question number 3 and continue building our process skills. All right, so over to you, Rajat.
All right, thank you, Payal. And I'm assuming that I'm still audible. Let me just make sure we put in a yes/no poll. Payal, if you could please promote me as host, that would be helpful so that I can use the poll questions, not as a presenter. Thank you. Yes. So with that, let's put in a poll question and make sure that you guys can hear me. And I think the fact that Payal promoted me means that at least she can hear me. So that's a pretty good start to begin with. So select yes if you can hear me. Yes, perfect. Most of you can. That's wonderful. Let me actually hide this and let me put in my short answer part, which is still answer Payal's question, because all of us do answer to Payal. So let's clear all answers and go this. So I think there's certain things that we've observed that have happened till today. The first thing which is there is when you solve this question the second time, you not only got more questions correct, but you were also more confident. And can I get a few yeses on that as well? This is something that you guys observed over here. When you solve the same the 700 level questions again, yes, this. So the question is, why did this happen? And the reason why this happened was because you actually experience process skills. In a sense, you experience the very fabric of what's in Quant 2.0. And forgive me for the text that's cut. Adobe does that. We didn't cut corners, Adobe did. So one of the things that you guys probably know of us is, and e-GMAT's known for its verbal courses. What you probably don't know is that since the launch of Quant 2.0, and when we've been launching Quant 2.0 in bits and pieces since January of this year, we've actually delivered more Q49 or higher scores. And this is data for just for the first 5 months, from 1st of January to 31st of May. And all of these scores are Q49 or higher. And you can see we've delivered more Q49 scores than Target Test Prep, a company that's actually known for Quant courses. And these, you can go verify these numbers on GMAT Club. Go to the review sections, go look at verified reviews, and just look at this and you scroll through. And again, so whether you compare us against an American company that focuses just on Quant or a couple of other Indian companies over here, you'd see more success in this case. Again, for a company that's known primarily for verbal. And so let's see, why is it that this happens? So, and to do that, you've got to ask this question: what does it take to get to a Q50? And this is a question that we asked ourselves when we were designing Quant 2.0. And this Quant 2.0 design started sometime late 2019 or so. So it took us about a year and a half to really even iterate and release that first course. So the first thing that you need to do to improve people to that Q50, Q51, Q49 score is to make sure that they learn concepts in isolation, or they learn entities in isolation. So here you saw how process skills help simplify learning, and how when you learn process skills in isolation, you kind of recognize the very existence of translate, infer, considering all cases, and when you do that, you actually apply the concepts a lot better. So to get to that Q50, which is an almost perfect score, or a Q51, you've got to learn concepts in isolation, and you've got to then learn process skills and then GMAT skills, and you've got to learn them in a sequence. So the first takeaway is bifurcate that learning, because this allows you to focus, and focus allows you not only allows you to excel, but it also allows you to excel faster. The second piece, I think I want to ask this question over here. If you guys would answer this, if I can get this poll question in, please. What's your current quant score? If Atreya, you can really get that poll question here. I'd like to really know what is your current quant score. Okay. And if you don't have that poll question, then let's just out of 60, if you can just put this in the in the chat pod, please, that would be helpful. If you can put it in the notes pod. Quant score out of 60. What is your current quant score? You can't have 3. It's the lowest is, I think, 11. So how many of you are in the Q30 to 35 range? Q35 to 40, 40 to 45, and again, these ranges that you see over here. This is a poll question. Option 4, 3. Okay, now that I know. All right, perfect. So many of you are in various ranges. Now, what's the problem when you go and open a book? One of the biggest problems that is there is, each one of us has different needs. Some of us are reasonably good in geometry. Others are really need to start from basics. And what happens when essentially you actually get a course when you're at, let's say, the 60th percentile level, and you get a course that starts from basics, you find it not as interesting. And Atra has actually created a question. We can now see, you guys can add this piece over here. If you can mark those mark the answer choices, and let me broadcast result. So essentially what happens is, if you get to a quant course where you're starting from basics, when you already know the basics, it reduces your motivation. You kind of get bored, and then when that happens, you'd no longer feel the need to learn. That motivation to learn goes away. So bottom line is, given just the bifurcation over here, and I'd love to see more participation, each one of you actually needs your own unique quant course and your own unique solution, not just the right starting point, but even then beyond that, a unique learning. And then let's just see the impact that this makes. So let's take the example of the geometry course, since we are in the geometry webinar. Our entire geometry course is about 76 learning activities that translate into about 40 hours of content. So if you're a Q30 student, I mean a 25th percentile student or so, you probably need all these learning activities. A Q45 student probably needs just about 30 activities to achieve to a Q50 or about a perfect score in the context of geometry. A Q49 student probably needs just 12 activities. So essentially, different students have different needs, which means different kinds of learning, and essentially you have to have different courses. So the second takeaway that we have from all of this is, you need a system that depending on your ability, serves a different course to you. Okay. The third thing is, even when you have that bifurcation of activities, even when you get those different courses, you still need feedback that you've excelled, because if when 100 people go through a certain concept file, let's say on rectangles in geometry, then they need, if those 100 people want to excel, they need to learn to that same precise degree. So you need a mechanism that looks at each learning activity that you've gone through and evaluates and gives you feedback as to whether you've excelled or not. And if you've not excelled, what is it that you need to do? When you do that, when you have such a mechanism, then this then helps you get to that precise score very, very easily. Okay, so just to summarize, what does it take to score Q50? You need to learn step by step. You need a personalized course that's designed against your abilities, and you need feedback and course correction right when you're learning, not after that. Okay, so we took these 3 questions when we designed Quant 2.0, and let's see how it answers these questions. Okay, and why is it that we've delivered so much success just in that short span of last 5 months? In fact, if you look at July and June results, these numbers, the bifurcation has even increased in both June and July. TTP to us is not 2:1, it's more around 2.5:1 or 3:1, depending on the month that you look at. So Quant 2.0 uses expert AI to deliver all of this, and let's see how it does that. Let's start with personalization of courses. So in Quant, you have 5 courses starting from number properties to advanced topics. Now, each of these 5 courses is divided into modules. So here's an example of number properties, and they're not listed all the modules. I'm just going to focus on 4 modules over here. In each of these modules, you have a targeted set of diagnostics. I'm going to take just the simplest of modules. Even odd module is probably our smallest module out there. Even within that, what that diagnostic does is, depending on your starting ability, it creates that personalized course for each one of you. The user 1 is probably the weakest user, and he needs to go through 7 activities or about 4 hours of learning. User 3, in the context of even odd, probably someone who's already starting at a 60th or 70th percentile only needs to go through about an hour and a half of learning. So that's the personalization that happens with the expert. Okay, so let's see how this happens in this case. The geometry course, you have about, and let's now translate this in the context of a bigger course. Again, you take the same geometry course over here. It has about 4 modules. These 76 learning activities essentially are divided into 4 modules. For each module, there are diagnostics, and each the 2 diagnostics that are there in each module enable 5 learning paths per module. Essentially, which means just within the geometry course, you have 5 to the power 4, which is about 625 unique courses, depending on who you are. Do you guys think 625 courses will help personalize a course to your needs? Over here, when you have 625 unique courses, that can help personalize this to your needs. Just a yes or no in the chat pod would on the short answer part would be helpful. So that's the first piece that it does. It delivers that personalized course. Now let's see how does it do learning, the step-by-step learning. And I think some of this you've already seen. Again, I'm going to look at the 2D module. This is about 16 activities here. Again, as you zoom in, you have these diagnostics. These are purpose-built diagnostics that help personalize learning. It's not 1 but 2 diagnostics. So there's a separate concept level and a separate GMAT skills level diagnostic. Then you learn the concepts. And in this concept, each concept actually has evaluation built in over here. So you get feedback on how well you've learned the concept. Not only that, you then learn the process skills. Now, these process skills are the same process skills that cut across courses, but here you learn these process skills in the context of the concept that you've just learned. So this further helps cement the same infer, translate, consider all cases, etc. process skills on that concept. So you actually do that concept revision as you're doing this, and then you learn GMAT skills. And then again, each one of these activities has feedback built in there, so you can see that. So not only you get focused learning for each entity, you actually get reinforcement as you go from concept to process skills to GMAT skills in that particular context. So we've talked about personalized course, step-by-step learning. Let's talk about feedback on course correction, which I think is really essential. So how do we enable this? So again, we leverage expert over here, where experts built into every activity. We build special technology within every activity that sends data as you're going through that activity. And it looks at 4 questions. I'm going to talk about those 4 questions. So I'm going to focus on just these activities over here, concept 1, quadrilaterals. So it looks at whether you've accessed that concept, whether you finish the concept, which means you've gone through it. Now, but just finishing the concept isn't enough. It also looks at whether you've spent enough time. And how do we look at whether you've spent enough time? Because, hey, the benefit of a system where you have a system where 1,000 people with different abilities have gone through the concept, you can really look at, if you are starting at a 60th percentile in a GMAT skill diagnostic course or a concept diagnostic, then how did other people who started at 60th percentile do that? So that's how you evaluate whether the user has spent enough time. So that's true AI in many ways. And then each of these concept files, each of the process skill and GMAT skill files has quizzes in there, and it evaluates those quiz scores with a threshold. And based on these 4 elements, it gives you 3 outputs: whether you've learned properly, whether you need some selective revision, or whether you need to just redo the entire thing. Okay. And again, you can really see this is an example of how a screenshot of various states would look like. The beauty of this is this enables in-place revision, and when you have in-place revision, then essentially you fix any holes in your understanding, and as you go through the course, you reinforce that learning again and again, and by the time you reach towards the end, you're way more comfortable in solving this. In fact, we have people who start with about 30% over here in that GMAT skills diagnostic, and in this case, when they end up with 80% here, which is a phenomenal improvement. Why? Because in GMAT skills practice quiz, if you score 80%, you are already at a Q49, Q50 level. And this is even before you started practicing in Scholaranium. So this is just the learning part. Okay. So how do you, why does it, how has Quant 2.0 delivered so many Q49 or higher scores? Because it does these three things in the right manner. It leverages technology, it leverages the latest learning pedagogy. It ensures that each one of you gets, not just a personalized course, but also feedback. And here's what a few people actually said, and these few belong to these folks overall. So as a student who couldn't do Scholaranium and he was able to get to Q49, he was at a Q44 when he started. He said the expert architecture optimized the course for the very short time I had, and he leveraged the diagnostics, and you can actually watch these. All of these, each one of these success stories is on our YouTube channel. So you can leverage these over here. Just 1 second. Let me hide these. So you can leverage this. So Varun is number 1. Then Anand. Again, for him also, he was short on time, and most of you are going to apply in round 1 will be short on time, and for him, the diagnostics told him this is all he needed to focus on, and this is all that he learned and was able to get to a Q14. And someone was asking how many hours of learning you have. The beauty of this architecture is we have about 300 hours of learning, but the beauty of this architecture is you don't need to go through this. You only need to go through that content where you need help, and that's what this architecture tells you. Even before you start learning, you have good justification as to why you should learn an entity. Okay. I had a student who went from a 730 to a 760 in about 2 days, and 20 days. I'm sorry, and that 760 allowed her to get secure an admit from Tuck as well as a scholarship, about 50K scholarships or so. Okay, with that, hopefully you can now see how Quant 2.0 has enabled this incredible success, and why it has enabled this incredible success. So thank you for spending time with me. I'm now going to pass this on to Payal, who's going to make sure that you continue experiencing Quant 2.0.
All right. Thank you, Rajat. This was really wonderful. So I hope that all of you have a good idea of how you can enable yourself, how Quant 2.0, how the expert AI will help you get to your Q50 in the right amount of time, in the time that's right for you, making sure that you work on things that you need to work on and that you get feedback so that each and every moment that you spend on the platform, you know whether you're headed in the right direction, or if you're not, you get steered in the right direction so that you get to that Q50 at the right point or within the right amount of time. Okay, so now let's continue with what we were doing. We'll continue improving your process skill by following the architecture that we use in Quant 2.0, that is build your conceptual understanding, then build on your concept process skills, and then expose you to more difficult questions. Okay, so now this is question number 3. So I'm going to give you the question here. So solve this question, and then we'll take another stab at the 700 level question again. All right, let's put in our answers. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. I can tell that you guys are a little bit tired. All right, just one more question left after this. Well, the correct answer for this question is indeed choice E, and majority of you got this question correct. Well, again, not that many of you put in your responses, but that's okay. Let's go through. As long as you can follow through the solution, it's good. Okay, so because I want you guys to be prepared to solve question number 3, and I want you guys to solve it correctly because you can. A border of uniform width is placed around a square photograph. Now, again, this is where, step-by-step visualization, translating the English into your figure is very, very important. Okay, so square photograph, here's the square. Okay, then a border of uniform width is placed around a square photograph. You place the uniform width. Okay, you need to be able to visualize this. If a photograph has side of length n, you mark the side length n. Okay, and the width of border is p, you mark the width of the border. Okay, and as you're doing this, the figure needs to start speaking to you. Okay, which of the following represents the area of the border? Now think about it. What is the area of the entire section? If you have to figure out the area of the border, you need the area of the entire section, and then you need to cut out the area of the square photograph. That is what is going to give you the area of the entire border, right? So this is the level of visualization that is required, because through this visualization, then you infer that what you really need is area of the entire section, and then take away the area of the square photograph. Now, remember how we had now the inference that you have to draw with regards to the photo of the photo with the border is that it's a square. Okay, now how many of you were able to draw that inference? And let me get my yes no poll here so that I can get that answer from you. How many of you were able to draw this inference that what comes out is the square? Good. Okay, now was there anybody who was not able to? Tell me how many of you were not able to draw this inference that the outside the entire section is a square. Was there anybody who wasn't able to draw that inference? Click yes if you were not able to draw that inference. Good, because if all of you, okay, so those of you who were not able to draw this inference, make sure that you build your visualization skill. Now again, this visualization skill is in the context of geometry, so definitely go through each module of geometry so that you continue to build this skill. Okay, now, once we have drawn that inference, right, what we do is we understand what the length and what the length of the square photo is and what the length of the photo with the border is. Again, you document all that information in the table. You continue to visualize, organize your information the right way. Okay, so because the square photo has the length of n, photo with the border, you draw that inference that's going to be what, n plus p, right? That's going to be the length of the outside square. Now, because it's a square, the width is also going to be the same, n plus p. That's going to be the width here, which means that you can easily calculate the area, because what you need is the area. You then calculate the area. Now, what is area? You've already inferred that area is the entire of the border is entire section minus the square photograph. You pick up the appropriate parts over here of the area, and then now becomes the simplification part. Now here you can either just expand on n plus 2p whole square by applying the identity, or you apply the identity a squared minus b squared. Again, whatever you're more comfortable with. Right now I have solved it by simply opening up the n plus 2p whole squared by applying the identity. That's how I've done it. You can do it either which way, and again, that's what we cover in the simplifying algebraic expressions module in algebra course, so that you learn how to simplify such expressions. Okay, towards the end we get the answer 4p into p plus n. So again, these are the simplification skills that you need to build so that you can solve this question. Okay, so you just needed a few more seconds. You stopped at this point. Good. That is good, and that's absolutely fine. I understand that there was a time constraint here, but just imagine if you were able to do this a little quicker, if you built the skill you would have been able to do this a bit more quickly. Again, that's what you should target, because you know the process. You just have to now do it a little bit faster. So figure out where you took a little bit more time. Okay. All right. Now with this, so is everyone confident about how to solve this question? Because now I'm going to give you the data sufficiency question. So it's going to be exactly the same principle that you're going to apply on that question, is just in the envelope of, in the form of a data sufficiency question. So be sure to apply all the skills that you've learned for data to solve data sufficiency questions. So translate. So from this question, the learnings are: you translate information bit by bit, you visualize, you infer, you simplify the calculations. Now let's try our hand at this question. I'm going to get you the poll for this one here. Where is my retake here? So if you're asking a question about why it is n plus 2p and not n plus p, be sure to look at the calculations clearly. Okay. Okay, nothing visible. You guys should be able to see this, right? Okay, can you all see the screen with the question? It's question number 3. Okay, good. All right, go ahead and solve this question. All right, I'm going to pause this question right here. I know there are quite a few of you who are still solving this question. Now, let's go through the solution of this one. Let me end this poll here. Tell me, where are you guys stuck? Because I can see that you are having some problems answering this question. Tell me, where are you stuck? I'm pretty sure you all know what the area of the border is, right? You've just solved that question. You guys understand that it's the outside minus the inside, right? So write down, where are you stuck? Too much data. Each option requires calculation. Concept of borders is not clear. Okay. Okay. Each statement required calculations, so took time. Not yet stuck, still solving. All right, that is fine. Let me carry forward. If you're not stuck and you're still solving, that's okay. I would say follow along the solution and make sure that you answered, that you got each and every step right, okay, till the point you reached, okay? Because the idea of for this is to get feedback on how is it that you're doing and how to improve the parts that you're not able to do well. Now, let me take this away. 1 second here. Okay. The length of R is A. What is the length of rectangle S? So again, let's go through this one over here. A border of uniform width W. So this is exactly what we had in the previous question. Okay, is placed around rectangle R to create a bigger rectangle S. Okay, so observe that there is a border that is placed across along um, rectangle R, and now you have a bigger rectangle S, right? Now, if the difference of between the perimeter, so first thing that you have to do is you have to tabulate the length and the width, and that's something that you've been doing from the first question onwards, right? So how many of you tabulated this? Yes, no? Press yes if you tabulated this. Good. I think if you all get in the habit of tabulating the information, that would be a big success for me, because now you have already started to apply a process skill in the right manner. Okay, and you'll see how by organizing the data the right way, your accuracy will start to improve. The solution is going to become a lot more clear. Now, because we are dealing with the perimeters, we again create another column for perimeter and we write it down, and then we translate that we translate the information that's given to us in the question statement in terms of what we identified over here in our table, and then we solve for A, B, and W. And I understand there are too many variables. I absolutely understand there are 3 variables, and that's where we have to build our simplification skills so that we are able to process that information in a lot more clear manner. So if this is what bogged you down, tell me how many of you got bogged down by looking at this kind of equation and just wondering that, okay, there are too many variables, I can't really do much about it. Well, if that's the case, then it's word problems that the initial modules of word problems would really come in handy for you, okay, because you sift through the variables, you identify information from that. But observe that what you get is W is equal to 2. So you have the width. So the question statement is already providing you with the width, and that's how the questions become difficult. That's how test makers create difficult questions. Instead of saying that a border of uniform width of 2 units is placed around rectangle R, now the test maker has given you all this elaborate information with the ultimate goal to see, can you utilize that information to get to W is equal to 2, okay? And you need to be able to do that. Okay, now you put that information back into the table, and you say, okay, what are the eliminate the variables that you've already calculated. So you've already figured out the value of W, get rid of that, and now you have your perimeter in terms of A, B only. Okay, and which means that is what you need to figure out. You need to draw that inference that what you need is the sum of A and B. How many of you were able to draw that inference? That what you need is the sum of A and B to calculate the perimeter of S. Good. Okay. So now you look at each statement. Now, area of the border is 52 square units. Now, you did exactly the same analysis in the previous question. It's just that now the numbers are you have more information given in terms of the width now, right? And when you put in that information, what you actually get is the unique value of A plus B, which means that statement 1 is sufficient. Again, simplification process skill is the key over here, so that you can sift through the information and you can arrive at the value of A plus B. Okay. Now, next, statement number 2. Statement number 2, again, it requires you to translate the information that's given here and then again put it in the table. Now, I'm pretty sure that you would have been able to arrive at this point over here that rectangle R has AB, rectangle S has 1.8 and 2B. Now, is there any other relationship between the sides of the rectangle? Answer the question that you can utilize at this point. Any other information that's given to you such that you can utilize this table over here, 1.8A, 2B, A and B. And what is it? Yes, absolutely. The width is given to you because you've already figured out the width. Now, because the width is given to you, you already know that rectangle S, the length of rectangle S was A plus 4, right? And the width was B plus 4, which means you now can calculate the individual values of A and B, which means you can calculate the sum, which means that statement 2 is also sufficient. Therefore, choice D is the correct answer. So tell me, why did you falter in this question? I'm pretty sure, because again, if I look at the responses here, not many of you selected choice D as the correct answer. So why did you falter in this question? And that's a very important thing. As you set off to improve your ability, you need to, as you go through the solutions, which are done in this step-by-step manner, you always need to figure out, why did I falter? Yes, I understand the solution now. I understand how to approach it, but always take that a step further and understand, why did I make the mistake? How do we solve these lengthy questions in less than 2 minutes? You build your process scalability. There's nothing in this question that warrants more than 2 minutes. You can easily solve this question within 2 minutes. And the way to do that is you build your conceptual ability, you build your process skills, okay? So that when you are, for example, in this question, the uniform width of width W. I mean, you shouldn't really have to think too hard to come to this part over here, to come to the inference that W is equal to 2. You should be able to do this rather quick. Imagine you guys have just started to, how many of you have just started to organize the information in this manner from this session? How many of you have now, will now do this deliberately? Well, right? So you are already on that path. Now remember, how many of you said initially that you end up wasting too much time because you don't organize your information properly, right? There are those small things that as you start building those building blocks, as you start putting them in place, you will start to see that no matter the difficulty level of the question, you will have that confidence, you will have that ability to solve those questions correctly and within the time constraint. Okay, so that's the power of building those process skills that I want you guys to understand that. Yes, absolutely. All these are very much possible to solve under 2 minutes. Now, there are some questions, none of these questions would take more than 2 minutes, that's for sure. Okay, but there are some questions that do require more time, right? But when those questions require more time, you have those process skills already developed, so that as you are spending more time, every second that you spend with that level of confidence that yes, I'm headed in the right direction. That's the level of confidence that you will get to as you go through the Quant 2.0 course. Okay, that's what the expert AI promises to give you. Okay, so that you get to that Q50. All right, so if you think about it, in this question, there's nothing new that you did not know about. You solve the easier process solving question. You translate information bit by bit, you visualize, you infer, you simplify the calculations. The thing that all of you need to make sure is that you build these skill sets. Each of these skill sets needs to be built, okay? And you need to have a partner with you. Quant 2.0 Expert AI is that partner that helps you build those process skills so that you can solve these questions confidently and efficiently. Okay, now let me summarize all that we have seen here. It's very important to summarize that, so I'm going to take away this one. Okay, so we need to put it all together, okay, so that you can see. Okay, so if you look at question number 1, the concepts that it covered were area and perimeter. The skills that you utilized were translation, visualizing the data in the table, and draw correct inferences, right? That's what we did over here, right? Now, when you look at the GMAT style question for this, the data sufficiency question, in addition to applying these, you needed to know how to solve a GMAT style, a DS question. There was nothing new that was there in the original, in the individual statements. Yes, what you had to absolutely do was infer completely from the question statement, what is it that you need to figure out. Okay, in the absence of that, you would have made mistakes in the second version of this question, right? If you had not figured out that you need the value of a plus b, you wouldn't have been able to conclude that statement 1 is sufficient. Okay, so again, the key thing that I want you to understand is that in order to attain mastery, you need to focus on one thing at a time, and you need to take those learnings with you to the next step as you start to learn more and more difficult things to solve those questions. Okay, but it's breaking it down into one thing at a time, mastering that, and only then moving forward. In the second question, we had to deal with the concept of diagonals, right? Again, this was the simpler question over here, the question in which we had to visualize that, okay, it's OA is the diagonal here, right? And we again went through the same process here, right? But now when you solve the difficult question here, you realized how that 200% conceptual clarity is required, right? If you assumed information from the figure, you actually would have made the mistake. If you assumed, and I'm missing the figure here, if you saw the quadrilateral here, but you assumed that the figure that was given to you is the rectangle, then that was completely disastrous. So again, that's the same process skill. You need to infer the right thing, and if you infer the wrong thing, then you end up making mistakes. Okay, and likewise in the last question, and again, what you see over here is that every question in the process skill file is carefully selected, which is aimed at improving your ability so that you get closer to that Q50. Now in this question, as long as you are able to solve this question, there's a certain skill set that you need to build, right? Now the student over here who's saying, Aris, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, that you keep getting confused calculating the area of the border. For some reason, I think border is part of square plus next square plus border, right? So again, that means you're not as yet able to visualize, which means that you're not as yet ready to move on to solve data sufficiency questions, which means you need to spend more time on the process skill files, okay? And that's the feedback that you will get from the system as you're going through the course. Okay, so I want you all to enjoy that feedback, to experience that, and I'd want and I'm going to invite Rajat back into the session so that he can help you figure out how you can utilize the information that's available to you so that you can experience this and get to the score that you are aiming to get to. Okay, so let me just get the right presentation here back up. All right, part 2, because it's very important that you cement all of this understanding and you take it to completion, because you have the content in your course that you need to use in the right way so that you can cement all this understanding. So over to you, Rajat.
Thank you, Pal. I just want to talk about one point that someone asked. Will I be able to do this in 2 minutes? Those Q49 scores are evidence that you will. And one thing that I'll tell you at e-GMAT is we don't consider timing to be a skill. We consider timing to be an outcome. If you follow the process properly, the timing will fall in place. You won't have to worry about it. The only reason you you feel time pressure is because you don't follow the process. You don't draw the right inferences. As a result, you go in circles. So what are some of the next steps? Again, to achieve mastery, you've got to take one step at a time. Excuse me. And so that's something that you've got to do. So if you're an e-GMAT student, the thing that I want you to do is make sure that you go through the Quant course. That's really important, and do this one step at a time. So follow the expert recommended course structure, master the process skills, and pay particular attention to your scores in GMAT skill files. That's really important, because that's what indicate mastery. Those scores are there for a reason, and those recommendations are there for a reason. So that's really important that you go through this one step at a time. As an example, I mean, take a look at what those diagnostics tell you. Each of these diagnostics are a set of recommendations at the end, and you'll actually get to see Payal. Unfortunately, in these live sessions, you don't get to see her, but in those videos, you get to see her. And go through these modules one after the other, starting with lines and angles, then 2D1, 2D2. Again, the process skills from one module help you become better in the next module, and you'll feel that as you go through these modules one after the other. Okay. If you're a free trial user, there's a comprehensive free trial that we have for you. You can take that free trial and essentially then evaluate whether this fits your learning style. And if this fits your learning style, we have an end of month deal going on, which extends for a couple of days. I think I have 4 or 5 coupons left, and see if this fits your learning style, consider purchasing the full course. Here's the free trial. Start with the GMAT skills diagnostic quiz and the concept diagnostic quiz, and accordingly proceed. Look at the concept file or the process skills file. Again, this is just about 1/3 of the GMAT skills of the 2D2 module, which in turn is I believe about 1/10 of the geometry course or so. So with that, happy learning, and go get your target GMAT score. At this point, I'll be happy. Why diagnostic skills before concepts? Both diagnostics, great question. They're both diagnostics, concept or GMAT skills level. They're not supposed to be, they're not supposed to teach you. The reason why concept skills are before the diagnostic is because, again, a lot of our students know the concepts. They focus primarily on the, for them, the GMAT skills piece provides a lot more value. But again, depending on who you are, one or the other may provide better value. Okay. Again, if you can share your aha moments in the top left-hand corner, that'd be wonderful. Okay, and also your rating of session out of 10. What's the minimum time to finish the e-GMAT course? I think that's a question you shouldn't be asking, because I don't have a good answer for you, because I don't know what your ability score is. If you're someone who's starting at a very, very basic ability, then you probably will need about 180 to 200 hours. On the other hand, if you're starting with a high ability score, then you won't need that long. And this is where I think, let me share the web links to our success stories. In fact, if you look at our latest success story, it's a guy who improved from a Q48 to a Q50 in about 10 days. And that allowed him to go from a 710 to a 750. So it just depends. I mean, you might end up taking just 10 days if you're at a high ability score, or you might end up taking 10 weeks overall. Okay. Wouldn't one want a live teacher rather than a pre-recorded lesson? Let me tell you one thing. Once you go through our course, you wouldn't want a live teacher, because a live teacher would not give you content that's customized to you. So yeah, go through the free trial, and you would get to know that. Okay. Here there's a notion which is there. It's the same thing, that where people feel have got to learn from a live instructor. Think about it this way. People who design courses at e-GMAT are paid 10 times what a live instructor is paid. And with technology and with all of this personalization, you get to learn from an instructor that gets, who gets $400-500 an hour, versus learning from someone who earns 1,000 rupees to 2,000 rupees an hour. So again, you make a decision. Another way I would really look at this is to say, hey, go to even a reasonably good B school in India and go and learn from a professor, or go to YouTube, watch one of Clayton Christensen's lessons. Clayton Christensen is a former Harvard Business School professor. Harvard Business School professor. He invented the term disruptive innovation, and you would realize that spending 30 minutes with Clayton Christensen's video, you're going to learn a lot more than what you would learn from taking an innovation class, spending a week in an innovation class at even a school such as SPJAN. That's the value of quality. Aishwarya says, I'm at Q40 and V18. That was what I got in a Sigma X mock. And so I'm really poor in verbal. Any specific instruction? Ashwarya, I mean, you have your task cut out for you, right? Even you're at a V18 and a Q40, then on verbal you probably need everything else. Or start with the master comprehension course, then move to sentence correction, then critical reasoning or reading comprehension. From MC, SC, after that you can go to either CR or RC, it doesn't matter. Make sure you take that personalized feedback that's given to you, score high in concept and application files and practice quizzes, and where you don't, revise them right then and there, and you will see those core improvements happen. I mean, there are about 180 success stories out there. Is it a good idea to do both verbal and quant modules simultaneously? No, it's not a great idea, especially if you're just studying for 2 to 3 hours a day, which most of you are, I'm assuming. So do just quant or do just verbal, and which is why we have in every course, we have the learning phase and a cementing phase. Why? Because once you go through the cementing phase, you can go from one subsection to another. For example, you could go from SC to number properties. You won't forget SC because you've done that cementing. Okay. Any other question?
Can you hear me? Yeah. So Rajat, I'd like to take one question here, because it says,
Sure.
I hope such explanations are provided within the course. Well, nothing that I did in this session is everything that I did in this session is part of your course. That's why I want you all, people who are not as yet e-GMAT students, I want you all to experience your free trial, the quadrilaterals module. You will see the exact same architecture that I've followed here applicable in that module, and not only in that module, in every module in Quant 2.0 course. Okay, so it's not that we have just built up this fancy session to just lure you into it. Absolutely not. That's the reason why I have been completely away from the public platform all these months, working hard to get you the Quant 2.0 course, so that you all can improve at your own pace using the course that personalized to you. So I wholeheartedly welcome you guys to experience quadrilaterals so that you can make the right decision for your GMAT's journey. Okay, so over to you, Rajat.
Yeah, thank you, Pyle. I think that's a very valid point. I think this session is built from the course. I think that's the most important thing that you have to take away from this. So you'd probably enjoy the course better. Other question, is it possible to get just a month subscription? I think the first question you have to really ask, Rima, is do you just need a month subscription? I think that's there. And if that's there, yes, we do offer a lower price subscription, which is for $199, where you get both Quant and Verbal. And you can just write to me at rajat@e-GMAT, yes. But again, I would not, one thing that I will very strongly recommend is, do that only if you need it for a month. Okay. If you're giving the GMAT in 15 days, would you recommend purchasing this course? Yes, if you are stuck, definitely. I can share some examples of people who've improved in a very short amount of time. I think the question is, where do you need help? So that's, you should specifically purchase this course because we provide those hyper-specific improvement plans that can help you get to your target score. So here's a guy who went from, and again, this doesn't mean that you would, but here's a guy who went from 700 to 750 in about a week because of those hyper-specific improvement plans. And as you read reviews on the platform, on GMAT Club, sorry, you're going to really see many such instances of people improving from that 680. So we have a very specific plan called the LMP program, where you'll see people improving from that 680 to that 730, 740 realm within in less than a month kind of time period. So by the way, the PDF is on the middle top corner or so. Okay. All right, guys, if there are no other questions, then I'll thank you guys for spending your Sunday morning. If like me, you're in the US, or your Sunday evening here. And yeah, is Expert AI there in the 249 Quant Online package? Yes, it is. Again, if you are going to spend 249 on Quant Online, I'd recommend spend 299. Get with GMAT Online, get the Sigma X mocks, get the entire support. That's a way better deal for you, rather than just buying Quant. I mean, even if you just need 2 points of improvement in Verbal, I'd still recommend that you buy that. Just the incremental mocks are worth more than worth that $50 delta, especially given that each one of those mock tests comes with an ESR like analysis. So yeah. All right, with that, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. And again, remember, we have the session on Wednesday where one of our former students is going to talk about how do you get into Columbia and INSEAD. So definitely join me on Wednesday on our YouTube channel. Again, if you click on any of these links, you can register for that. Here's the link to that session on Wednesday. Okay, so and it's on our YouTube channel. So that's. All right. Thank you very much, and good luck.